Hello, hello. Welcome everybody back to another episode of Buffalo Sports Insider with your host today, Deshaun Francois. I have Thomas Bailey, Evan Harrington, and Richard Miller, sorry, coming from Buffalo Sports Insider. We got everything sports, everything Buffalo. Make sure you guys are checking us out on all our social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, anywhere that you want to find us, buffalosportsinsider.com. We are giving you guys all the articles, all the news, all the information, everything sports, everything Buffalo coming to you live. So today we are going to get started with the Super Bowl recap of the biggest game of the year, honestly, in my opinion. So that was such a beautiful game, honestly. I want to get started with how the game started out itself with the opening drive fumble from CMC. What were your guys' thoughts off rep seeing the best running back of the year fumble in the opening drive?
Yeah, so I guess I'll kick things off for us here. I mean, obviously, we got Christian McCaffrey, CMC, winning Offensive Player of the Year, probably his second best season behind his 19th season with the Carolina Panthers. Just a phenomenal year for CMC, and he was getting things going for the 49ers in that drive, but then the fumble happened, and you thought right then and there that is this going to be where Kansas City just kind of runs away with this game? But at first, I thought the CMC fumble just not the best way to start a drive.
Richard, what are your thoughts?
I mean, obviously, when the game first started, the 49ers looked in control. It felt like it was going to be one of those games where I originally thought the 49ers were going to control the first half and then the Chiefs were going to control the second half, which in a way was kind of true. But they were ultimately able to, not get too steered from that. I feel like their defense definitely showed up in the first half. Obviously, we know the end result. But yeah, that was
didn't really waver the 49ers too early to start off the game.
not considering what happened in the first quarter.
Okay.
So I would like to continue on into a little more sequence of what was going on in that game. A whole lot of defensive fumbles,
A whole lot of punts coming out of this. And then you got one interception that was really crucial that was right at the beginning of halftime. But what I would like to focus on next would be the field goals that were kicked in the games. We had two record-setting field goals that were kicked, not back to back, but I would say that they were really prominent at times that they came in during the game. So we start off with the first field goal from Jake Moody, and I believe it was 55 yards. So, Thomas, what would you have to say about when that field goal was going in? Did you have any hopes of it being made?
I mean, a little bit of bias hit me for this game. I mean, like I'm not too big on the Chiefs. I don't like to see the same team win over and over again, especially since we just got out of that Tom Brady era where the Chiefs and Patriots now like basically the same type of deal. For the most part, I wanted Jake Moody to make this kick, and it's just bias. I wanted the 49ers to win the game, but honestly, that's an impressive kick right there. He's a rookie kicker. He's had struggles all season. He missed a game winner against the Browns. That was like 35 yards back earlier in the season. For him to make a Super Bowl like that on the biggest stage in the world is an impressive kick.
okay. So speaking of the fact that you said that you wanted the 49ers
To win the entire game. Let's ask you two now. Who did you guys go for the entirety of the game? Like before kickoff even started, were you going for the 49ers or the Chiefs?
Yeah, so I guess I agree with Thomas over there. I would have liked to see the 49ers win this game, but realistically, I just wanted to see two good teams play a great game of football. And I know it's hard being a Bills fan. We've probably our three best teams over the last 4 years have been stumped by Mahomes and the Chiefs, and we don't want to see him win another one. But at the same time, I just wanted to see two good teams play a great game of football. It would have been nice to see the 49ers win, but at the end of the day, the Chiefs won. I thought it was a good game, so I wasn't too mad at the Chiefs winning it overall, but I would have liked to see the 49ers win.
Richard, your thoughts?
Probably my two least favorite teams in the league are the Chiefs and the 49ers, but I was rooting for the 49ers this game. I feel like it was a very well played game. Ultimately, the better team had won, or the team with the more generational player had won. So
I would like to say that
I agree with your first part of that statement where you were saying that the better team won because I do think that the better team actually won. We saw a cohesive Kansas City Chiefs the entire way from the last game of the season straight through the entirety of the playoffs. They were underdogs every single game, and I feel like that's what really propelled them into making that push that forced them to do another great comeback in the second half because looking at Mahomes' track record, anytime that you see that he was down 10-0 at any point, he's always come back and won the game. So I feel like the better team definitely won when it comes to saying like how the game played out. And I was kind of going for the Chiefs the entire way after doubting them the entire playoffs, honestly, because we're all Buffalo Bills fans out here and we wanted the Bills to beat them. So it was like right after that, I was like, yeah, the Chiefs are just going to go ahead and make it as far as they can.
And I think the big thing about this game is that it was very hard to beat the Chiefs because we all know that the Chiefs can flip a switch on and they can put up 30 plus on you at any given time at any given point in the game. But that wasn't the story this year for Kansas City, and especially in the Super Bowl. Their story was Steve Spagnuolo and the defense, right? This was the best defense. This was the best defense that Patrick Mahomes has had in his entire career up to this point, and he's already got 3 Super Bowl wins, right? But the other thing that was big and vital in this, like we talked about, the kicks in the Super Bowl and the record-setting kicks there, the special teams, man. The special teams made plays for Kansas City all throughout the game, whether it was Harrison Butker making big-time 50-plus yard kicks or the special teams recovering, the fumble that Ray McCloud had, the muff punt, right? Those are big games. Those are big game-changing, game-swinging plays that allowed this team to get going because this offense didn't have a touchdown to the late third quarter. And if you would have said that the Chiefs offense didn't have a touchdown to the late third quarter, you would think that, whoever's playing them have a golden opportunity to win. No, they didn't.
Time Chiefs defense was holding up
because the other two faces of football were playing phenomenally.
That defense is impressive. I mean, for them to not score a single for like almost 4 full quarters if you count the second half of that Ravens game in the AFC Championship game, in the 2 biggest games of the season, and they didn't score a single point on offense with Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback. That's very, very weird for us because we're all used to uncharacteristic because realistically this offense has been able to put up 35 40 points every single season, every postseason game, and you saw a different kind of Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl, and that's what's forming this dynasty. That's what's forming them into an amazing football team because it's not just that offense that's winning them this game, it's the defense, it's the special teams getting involved, and when it comes together like that, you have a really dangerous team.
So we have a great question
from the chat from Brian Lose. He asked, are there any hopes of a three-peat? And we're going to start with you, Richard. What do you think of the Chiefs dynasty and the chance of them going back to the Super Bowl next year?
I'm honestly expecting a three-peat, if I'm being completely honest. I think it's as much as I don't want to see
I
it.
feel like they have a stronghold over the AFC right now. There are obviously a lot of great young quarterbacks and teams in the AFC. Obviously, you want to see the Bills make it. But as far as I'm concerned, the Chiefs are the far favorites. And I don't care what the odds say, if they say it's the 49ers, if they say it's the Eagles, whoever they may say is the Super Bowl favorites. I wouldn't go against Kansas City as a favorite.
So who would you say is going into next season? Goes into the AFC Championship question.
I would have to see how the team's made their rosters up in the offseason. I think Baltimore, barring the Zay Flowers situation, I feel like they probably are. I feel like we play them the toughest. I feel like Josh Allen has played almost to the level of Mahomes, and obviously he's not going to play as well as Mahomes a lot of times. But
Okay.
I think the Bengals, I think they do have a lot of teams that pose strong threats. I just think that they are a dynasty.
And how would you have to say about the chance of the Chiefs three-peating next year?
So, me personally, I think that there's a really good chance of it happening. There's 2 big things that I think have to happen if it's going to make sense for them, and that's re-signing Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed.
Yes.
They're both upcoming free agents. In the cap situation that they're in, it's going to be difficult to make the money work to be able to bring back both guys. If that is true, then which one do they prefer? Which one do they bring back? Chris Jones is older, but the better overall player. You got L'Jarius Sneed, who's younger. You could probably get him on a 4 or 5 year contract, and you'll have that secondary lockdown for the majority of Patrick Mahomes' era. When you have that kind of question and you don't have the cap space, it's going to be a very difficult situation for the Chiefs. I know they're really good at drafting. Brett Veach knows what he's doing there in Kansas City. So I like the odds of a three-peat. But if I had to say about a team that poses a big threat here, and mark my words, I'm not thinking Buffalo Bills. I'm thinking Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow injured this season, a really good chance of them making the playoffs. Look at that team. They still found a way to be within one game of making the playoffs there at the end for the longest. They were so close. Even with Jake Browning at quarterback, he's not like terrible, but he's not Burrow either. And when you got a team like that can work around any quarterback, you get that elite quarterback like Burrow back in there. Mark my words, they're going to be a dangerous team. And then on top of that, you look at the draft coming up. They're going to have a higher overall pick now because they missed the playoffs, and it's going to give them a chance to get a better player. Maybe a Brock Bowers falls to them, or someone like a Rome Odunze if they can't re-sign T. Higgins. When you got things like that that work in their favor, I don't see how they can't be one of the favorite teams to knock off Kansas City. I think that the only other teams that really bode a threat are Josh Allen and the Bills and Baltimore Ravens. And it's going to come down to which team wins that division in the AFC North that I think is going to end up being the harder team. And at least in my opinion, as of today, February 12th, 2024, I'm going Cincinnati Bengals.
I love that take right there. And I love how you were focusing so much on how Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow are such focal points of their team and that get them so far. So now, Evan, we're going to have to swing this question over to you because we got another question from one of our alums of Buffalo Sports Insider. Thank you, Colton, for asking. Does last night's win say more about Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes in your opinion?
I'm actually going to swing with it. I don't think it says either of them. I think it's about Steve Spagnuolo and how great of a defensive coordinator he is and what he did for that team. Now, that's not going to discredit what Patrick Mahomes did in the second half in the late fourth quarter and leading up into overtime and what Andy Reid did down the stretch. But, I mean, Spags, that guy is a stud. Well, he's the first coach to win it as an OC in DC in National Football League history, a Super Bowl ring. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that just shows you what type of assistant coach he is under Andy Reid. Just that defense in itself was just, I don't like to throw the word around, but it was generational under the generational player, Patrick Mahomes, like that. And I guess what we'll say about this, the Super Bowl win, I guess could be a little more for Patrick Mahomes in the sense of the GOAT chase.
Okay.
Let me put it like that. I think Andy Reid has already cemented himself as an all-time great coach.
Okay.
Right? I think Andy Reid, maybe if he wins one or two more, maybe we'll start hearing the conversation of him being compared to Belichick a little more. But when it goes to just being a head coach, Andy Reid is one of the, the five greatest offensive minds this game has ever seen. And he's already cemented himself as a top coach in NFL history. But the conversation now looming with this game and Patrick Mahomes was him winning it and moving himself further on into the GOAT conversation, passing a Peyton Manning and getting himself more into the conversation with Tom Brady on that 7-ring chase.
Yeah.
Tom talked about that. Not Tom. Patrick talked about that a little bit with his chase towards Tom because Tom has been the one to beat him every time in the Super Bowl. So it's kind of hard for him to really move towards getting into that conversation, how he would see fit and feel comfortable. But to go a little bit more back on what Colton was asking, I would say that win did a lot more for whoever called that play at the end of the game and relying on McCole Hardman. Because I don't think that it was going to be something that anybody expected at all. That was something that either Pat went up to Andy and said, we have this play, we've ran it so many times, because everyone's seeing that little motion, and then they run right back out because it catches so many people off guard. So I feel like whether it was Andy or Pat in that moment, I think that's who really got more out of that win. And we got another question from another alum. Thank you, Justin, for tuning in. How is the franchise alerting of a move was the Chiefs jumping the Bills for Trent McDuffie in 2022 draft? So, I'm going to have to direct that to you, Tommy. What do you think?
Okay, so the 2022 NFL draft was a difficult one for the Buffalo Bills. And, I mean, like Trent McDuffie getting jumped and he didn't really get that chance to draft him like a lot of people thought we would end up drafting a cornerback. And so the big issue with it was not necessarily that it was Trent McDuffie, because it was just the fact that he was a better fit in Kansas City than I think he would have fit in Buffalo. I feel like it wouldn't have been too much of a big issue for Buffalo. I think we just needed the veteran cornerback like a Rasul Douglas, like we ended up getting at this year's deadline, rather than the younger corner like a Kaiir Elam, for example. So I feel like Trent McDuffie would have thrived a little bit better than Kaiir Elam, but I feel like at the same time, I feel like we just needed that veteran presence, not really the youth in our secondary. And because of that, I felt like the Buffalo Bills getting Trent McDuffie wouldn't have been too much of an altering move for our franchise, but I do think that it would have inevitably helped us.
So looking at
I automatically think of all the memes that I see of the Bills ended up trading their pick that could have had Patrick Mahomes.
Just the 10th overall.
So yeah, that's what I think of
That's the franchise
automatically
altering move between
as
our
soon
two
as we see something
franchises.
like this, because we know that the Bills are very lackluster when it comes to having healthy corners, and their secondary is always injured. So seeing how consistent Trent McDuffie was this year, I feel like he would have been a great addition to the team, just for the fact that he would have been on the field a lot more than we saw from anyone else this season, honestly, in my
It
opinion.
would have helped too with the injuries and everything we had in our secondary as well. And of course, it would have got rid of one of those issues with the Chiefs being their secondary being so great.
Mhm. But I think that's all we're going to talk on for the Super Bowl. It was a great 2024 season for the NFL.
Congratulations to the Chiefs. Yeah, jinx right there. Congrats on Patrick Mahomes for winning his Super Bowl MVP. But there are more sports that are in session right now. We're going to kick it over to Tommy so he can lead us with the Sabres and talk about how great of a season they're having.
Hello, everybody. And so we got this already. All right, so the Buffalo Sabres are coming off a loss 3-1 to the St. Louis Blues on Saturday afternoon. The game started at 1 o'clock, but ended a little bit after 4. The Buffalo Sabres have had a very up and down stretch since we last left off in late, I guess mid-December, I should say. December 14th was the end of our semester. They were 10-10-1 to this day since we last left off. It's an interesting bounce around, we go up by a game, down by a game. It just consistently just back and forth, I guess. Very weird team here in Buffalo. Really disappointing season for many of our fans. A lot of people would think that across the board. This season is a little bit of a letdown compared to what we were expecting. I'm sure, at least in my own personal opinion, I was expecting a huge jump from the Buffalo Sabres this year after last year just missing the playoffs by one singular point. Sabres captain Kyle Okposo would have the only goal and point of the entire game a couple nights ago. Goaltender Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen would give up 3 goals on just 26 shots in the game compared to his counterpart, Joel Hofer, who only gave up 1 goal on 34 shots. So it just kind of begs the question here, does this offense need someone else? And what I mean by that, does that mean we get somebody at the trade deadline? Do we trade for somebody and, kind of just figure it out from there? I think we need to get a forward, because we had 48 shots against the Dallas Stars on Tuesday. We ended up only scoring 1 goal. We only scored 1 in this game. We had 34 shots. We outshot them again. There's a lot that goes into this, and so I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you think the Buffalo Sabres need to trade for somebody at the trade deadline?
I honestly think the Buffalo Sabres are kind of in a position now where
it would be hard to see them making the playoffs. I think they could make the move of going even more younger, getting more assets, and gauging the value of Okposo or maybe Girgensons in a trade. I don't think it would hurt to get a veteran forward to help them score, but I don't know that that's necessarily the direction I would take if I was a GM right now.
Yeah, right now for the Buffalo Sabres, you're at a standstill point right now because you were 1 point out of the playoffs last year. You were 1 point out. And the team that was 1 point ahead of us was the Florida Panthers, and they went on to the Stanley Cup Finals. They had a great postseason run. That's how close the Buffalo Sabres were to doing some damage in the playoffs. Not saying they were going to go win the cup, but they were there. They were on the cusp of smelling it.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with the Sabres at this point in time is they're a very young team. They're the youngest team in the National Hockey League. And your 2 veteran guys that you have on this team are Kyle Okposo, your captain, your assistant captain, Zemgus Girgensons. And I can say right now, confidently, that if you took Okposo and Girgensons and let them seek out a trade somewhere on a veteran team that's competing for a playoff spot or that's going to compete for a Stanley Cup, I think you have to go give them that opportunity. Because I think at this point in time, them playing on your fourth line is not doing anything for your team. Kyle Okposo, great in the locker room, a great person to have in the city of Buffalo, but his best playing days are far behind him, right? I think that if you give him the opportunity, along with Girgensons, both of those guys have been here through the thick and thin. Let them have an opportunity to seek out playoffs, seek out an opportunity to go play for something. Because right now you're not playing for anything, Buffalo. At this point in time, with 30 games left in the season, you're going to look to just end your season strong. There's not too much you can play for now because you're 12 points out of the playoffs. You're really just looking to end your season strong at this point in time. And if they were going to go make a move, I would like to see the Sabres trade a couple of their prospects and get a proven veteran guy that's, still young, kind of around the Alex Tuck, Tage Thompson age. Go get a proven veteran guy that can come in and spark up the power play, spark up the 5-on-5 game, get something going, get a spark under your top players because they need something offensively that has just not been there the last little bit.
So I don't really know much about hockey and the Sabres, but I have paid a little bit of attention to Alex Tuck and Tage Thompson. And I don't think
I think that Tage Thompson has been performing as well as he should be this year. What do you guys think about that?
Tage Thompson's been one of our least performing players, and it's honestly weird to me because Thompson was our point leader last year. He's one of the best players in the league, bar none. He finished somewhere around top 10 in at least points. Yeah, in points, but I know darn well that it was definitely in goals. He was right there. Yeah, he was right up there last year. And with that being said, I feel like this team just needs to find its groove. I don't know necessarily if we need a new player, but we need to find a way to finish our season strong. We need to find a way to get their confidence back, get into the swing of things. And I feel like trading for somebody might not be the right direction, especially in a year that feels like it's already over. But for the most part, as we kind of segue into this a little bit, this Blues game says a lot about this team. This is our second straight loss. We're heading to Tuesday's game. Sabres versus LA Kings, Tuesday night hockey in the black and red goat head jerseys, fan favorites across the board. The Buffalo Sabres will be at home for this game. This is going to be their third straight home game. They have one more in their homestand against the Florida Panthers coming up later on. They enter the game 22-25-4, which is literally just 52 points at this point. They're 48 points, my bad. Currently, they're 14th in the Eastern Conference, only ahead of the Ottawa Senators, who still have played 3 less games than us, and the Columbus Blue Jackets, who have tied us in games played. And when you think about that, we're 12 points out of a playoff spot. You think of all these things here, like it's going to be difficult to play a team like LA, but LA has struggled recently. I mean, like their last couple of games they've won, but they were on an absolute tear to start the season. They kind of fell off here. They're starting to regain it back up right now. So really, it's one of those games where I think Buffalo has to win if they want to start getting on the right track. I think this is a game they have to win. By the way, the LA Kings will be playing David Riddick, the former Calgary Flames season. And when you think about that, I think that if the Sabres offense can't get going against a third-string goalie, then I feel like we really genuinely have a problem in Buffalo. And so right now, the last little thing we'll talk about here for today's show is what do you guys think is going to be the overall score of this game for Tuesday night?
I'll go 3-2 Sabres. I think they could have gotten a much better win against
The backup goal in the go-ahead jerseys.
I'm going to go ahead and say
2-1, just because I don't feel like the Buffalo
Sabres have been doing anything as good
On
as
Sabres or Kings?
2-1 Sabres.
2-1 Sabres.
Yeah, 2-1 Sabres. Of course, we all want the Sabres to win. They've been on a very bad losing streak, so there's no reason why we would want them to keep on losing. Obviously, we want the Sabres to win. So 2-1 in honor of Sabres.
And will be the starters in this game if Lukin is ready.
Sabres a 4-2 victory. Luukkonen's been playing some stellar hockey the last 10+ games. And I think they have to find a way to get a win for Luukkonen. Offensively, I think they get 4 and give him 4-2.
Evan just going thought process. I'm looking forward to Buffalo Sabres. But with David Riddick being the backup, it's going to be an interesting game. I think the Sabres have a lot to be looking forward to, at least for their future. The Kings are still fighting for a playoff spot. They're 7th in the Western Conference, holding that first wildcard spot down. Thank you guys all for watching as I turn it back to Deshaun Francois for the closing segment.
We actually won't be closing yet because
We got one more sport that's very prominent.
Oh.
and it's one that people don't really focus on, which is lacrosse. I played a little bit of lacrosse in my high school days. I played long stick and I played some goalie a little bit at practice, but LSM and Depot was really where I stayed at. So we're going to kick it over to Evan so he can give us some highlights on the Bandits' current season and how they look going forward for the division.
Yeah, so obviously the Buffalo Bandits are coming off a championship win last season, and they struggled a little bit throughout the first couple of games of the season, but they've been picking it up. Obviously, the graphic up there showing the Bandits last win 15-14 over the Rochester Nighthawks. They sit currently with a 5-3 record, just above the Halifax Thunderbirds, who they do play this upcoming Friday. But the one thing I want to highlight so far about the Bandits season is like I mentioned, they were a little bit struggling early on, and they've been finding their groove a little bit with their win the other night, and they're 5-3 currently, is Dane Smith. 1,000 points in his career. He hit that against the Nighthawks in their last game. Only the 14th player in NLL history to do it. And when you think about some of the best players in National Lacrosse League history, you think of a guy like John Tavares, who obviously is the current head coach of the team. And it was Bandit's legend. It was on the team with Dane Smith in his earlier parts of his playing career. Now, John Tavares, who got to play with Dane Smith, now gets to coach him and be behind the bench for Dane Smith's 1,000th career point. And then also Josh Byrne hit his 400th career point, 2016 first overall pick. Those two guys this season, along with other guys like Chris Cloutier and, Kyle Buchanan, have just been studs. Matt Vince, obviously, as well. He's one of the league's best goalies. He's been a little shaky at points and times, but he's
50 saves in the win against Rochester.
Yeah, 50 save, and he's still showing why he is one of the top goalies in the NLL, even at the age of 42, which is just crazy to think about. 42 years old, and you're still playing with the best of them. Yeah, but not to disrespect Craig Anderson at all, because Craig Anderson was good when he was playing here, but Matt Vince is at the top of his game. He is at the top of the goaltenders in the NLL. But obviously just continuing to stay with Dane Smith, obviously just give him his flowers, his congratulations. And obviously Josh Byrne, he continues to climb and is ascending. Both are on 5-year contracts. So we're going to still have this duo of Smith and Byrne here for at least the next 5 years going forward. And this team has been contending for championships. And now they're sitting 5-3 in the 4th spot in the NLL. They have another chance to continue to do so as they are continuing to get better down the stretch of the season.
All right. Thank you so much, Evan, and congrats to Smith once again on a 1,000-point career so far. That's all the time that we have today with Buffalo Sports Insider. It's been a pleasure here with everybody. We got Thomas Bailey, Richard Miller, and Evan Harrington. I've been Deshaun Francois, giving you guys everything sports, everything Buffalo. Make sure you check out all of our social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, BuffaloSportsInsider.com for all articles, any stories. And if you guys have any questions, don't feel shy to hit us up at all. Just add us on any social media, and we'll reply to you as best as we can. Have a great day, everybody.